would be honored if you would join us.
Greetings and welcome to another YouTube episode of Film Stories with me, Dan Cooper. I've been away for a few weeks, just a short summer break, but I am back with another episode. And today, as we are pretty much coming to the eve of the release of Tarantino's 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I thought we'd go back and look at what is probably his most celebrated film. It's certainly celebrated for the amount that it made and the awards that it won, and that's Pulp Fiction. I thought I'd just pop out there a few Pulp Fiction facts that you may know about or may not know about, and just look at this really rather great film in just a little bit more detail. So, first of all, Tarantino, of course, wears his inspirations on his sleeve. When he famously met Harvey Keitel about Reservoir Dogs, because Keitel's involvement was what really led to Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino's first film, being funded. Keitel read the script and said to him, where do you draw this from? Do you come from a tough neighborhood? Do you come from a tough family? Were you involved in crime? And Tarantino said, no, I just watch movies. So here's a director that wears those influences, wears his kind of movie geekdom on his sleeve. And one of the major influences for Tarantino was the French New Wave. So the French New Wave, these were a movement of films coming out of France, obviously, but one of their key defining traits was the use of verite, this sense of realism in camera. And Tarantino wanted to pay tribute to a particular scene in the French New Wave film A Bande Apart, which has a dance scene. In fact, A Bande Apart, of course, was the name that he would give his production company. So, whether you knew it or not, that scene from Pulp Fiction, when Mia and Vincent are dancing, doing the twist and a few other dance moves at Jack Rabbit Slim's, was based heavily, or it was a homage to this scene, the scene that we're playing right now in front of you. And of course, whilst Tarantino was, I think a famous Tarantino quote is, "I steal from every movie I've ever seen." While Tarantino was paying tribute to that scene, of course it had to have his own twist on it. As I just mentioned, the French New Wave was about realism, verite, and that scene, of course, was shot on location, whereas Jack Rabbit Slim's was not. So the Jack Rabbit Slim's diner was not an actual location. It was built. It was the most expensive set built for Pulp Fiction. It was actually constructed in a warehouse. So let's have another one. So the second fact that we're going to look at then is the secret life and the secret involvement of Danny DeVito in getting Pulp Fiction made. So Danny DeVito, as well as being a great actor and starring in some just truly classic films, also throughout the 90s especially, was instrumental and influential in getting just a host of really great films off the ground with his production company Jersey Films. And this is all in an article on Vanity Fair on Pulp Fiction. Really great article if you want to go. There's so much more than I'm talking about here. But Tarantino was at the Terminator 2 premiere when he met a Hollywood executive named Stacey Sher, who would soon go on to become president, I think, or a top executive, certainly in DeVito's Jersey Films company. And she put them together, and at that time, as I said, Danny DeVito was instrumental in getting some really interesting films off the ground in the 90s. So he would already been responsible for Hoffa, Reality Bites, and then would pick up Pulp Fiction. And he says, when an interview with Vanity Fair, DeVito is quoted as saying that after just a short conversation with Tarantino, he believed he'd met the only person in the world that spoke with more speed than Martin Scorsese. And they agreed pretty much then and there to do the deal with DeVito and his Jersey Films company hoping to produce. It wasn't until Bruce Willis came on board, and that was through the Miramax, that the film's kind of production was truly ramped up. Its budget was increased significantly because of Willis's overseas box office. And so then, on to the third and final factoid for today on Pulp Fiction. So, the film was originally meant to be written by three writers. That would have been Tarantino, Roger Avery, and a third writer, with the idea that the omnibus format of Pulp Fiction being essentially three interwoven tales, that each tale would be written separately. However, when it came to the writing process, one of the writers, the third one, never materialized. And so Avery and Tarantino wrote the other stories themselves. Tarantino was originally responsible for the Jules and Vincent story. Avery was responsible for Butch's story. And Tarantino ended up largely scripting the third story. And so this is written in Amsterdam in a hotel room, or a rented room in Amsterdam. When Avery left Amsterdam, he believed that he'd written his section, and this is where things become a little bit confusing depending on what you read. Tarantino claims that he then fully rewrote it. What certainly happened though was that when it came to credits, Avery was met by Tarantino's lawyer, who turned up one day and demanded that he sign over the screenplay credit, which would leave him, of course, just with the story by credit. So he would share a story by credit, but he would lose the screenplay credit, and there things got a little bit ugly and threats were made, and Tarantino reportedly threatened to just rewrite what Avery claimed was his section completely at the movie, therefore exercising Avery completely at the film, and in due course an agreement was made. Avery had a modicum of revenge, though, a small measure of revenge. He claims that during the, how tongue-in-cheek this is, I don't know, but he claims that during the Oscar ceremony, because that year Pulp Fiction would go on to win Best Screenplay, Best Original Screenplay, he claims that he bunged a cameraman that he knew $500, so that when the announcement was made, Tarantino's face wouldn't be in camera. And if you're watching it in front of you right now, you can see that when Tarantino's face should be shown, the camera simply goes black. How true that is, I don't know, but Avery claims that was his small measure of comeback. So there's just three short, a bit interesting stories about Pulp Fiction, which in itself is a film comprising of three short but interesting stories as well. I'll be back next week with another film story. Whilst you're here, hopefully you're still here, do check out, please, our website. We've got details on Film Stories Junior and brand new magazine aimed at 15 and unders. Please have a look at Film Stories Senior, or just Film Stories, our Jewel in the Crown, our print magazine. And of course, if you want more film stories, you can check out Simon's podcasts at your podcast provider of choice. You can find us on Twitter at Film Stories Pod, or on Facebook at Film Stories Online. Please please subscribe. Add some more Pulp Fiction stories below if you know any more, or cherish or treasure any more Tarantino or Pulp Fiction stories. I am looking forward to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I hope you are too. Do take care. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.